Welcome to Revolt Black News. I'm your host, Eboni K. Williams. Now, recently, all of our timelines have been flooded with mass shootings and the histories of these events in our country. But today we're going to have a broader, larger conversation about gun ownership in the Black community and exactly where this effort to protect ourselves comes from. Later on in the show, Tanya Christian is going to moderate a panel on the anti-gun perspective. But we're going to start things off with a roundtable on the pro-gun point of view. Joining me is co-founder of Redstone Firearms, which is a federal firearms dealer in Southern California, Miss Geneva Solomon. Also with us is rapper, political activist, and founder of Black Guns Matter, Maj Touré. Welcome both of y'all to the show.
Thank you for having
me.
Absolutely. So listen, here at Revolt Black News, obviously we talk a whole lot about Black Lives Matter. Maj, I want to start with you. Your organization is Black Guns Matter. So can you tell us a little bit about what implored you to set up that organization and nonprofit?
Well, one, you just keep seeing guys catch the same possession charge. You go to Detroit, you go to LA, you go to, everywhere. Guys are getting arrested for simple possession. We're not talking about guys, and some of them are your friends. We're not talking about guys that, have, robbed somebody or killed somebody, just missing information. So that was the impetus for starting Black Guns Matter. And during that time in 2016, kind of like, this go around on the election cycle, we were seeing a lot of, uprising and civil unrest. But you can't say Black Lives Matter and not have the means to protect Black life. And I think some people have the misconception that, Black Guns Matter is somehow running contrary to the concept of Black Lives Mattering. And I think with the racist roots of gun control in this nation, it's very important that Black people do not outsource their security and rely on the government for that. So we just wanted to put together something from a holistic perspective of conflict resolution, de-escalation, arming the people and informing them about safe and responsible gun ownership where it's needed the most.
Fantastic. Now, Maj, speaking of, you brought up the stigmas and really kind of some of the false narratives about Black gun ownership running contrary to Black Lives Matter, and we're going to get straight to that right now. Now, we all know in this conversation that there's a lot of narrative, some of which is very false, about Black gun ownership and how gun ownership in general can make us all unsafe. Can you both, starting with you, Geneva, give us a sense of correcting some of those misconceptions about Black gun ownership and the safety of Black communities?
Yeah, a lot of the falsehoods that you hear is that having a gun makes you unsafe. Can that be true? Possibly, but we don't believe in that if you are going about it the right way. If you're going out there and you're just getting a gun and you bring it home and there's no conversations with the children in the home, if that's the case, or the family members of that home, and talking about that firearm and knowing that they have the education if they stumble upon a gun when you're not around, that can make it unsafe. So that's what the work that we do is we're going out into the community, we're in our firearm store and we're doing classes to make sure that that education is there, so that, that narrative can go away, that responsible gun ownership does exist in our communities. It is something that we take seriously, and we're not out here to just put guns in people's hands and say, okay, you're good to go. That's the falsehood that needs to be changed.
Yeah, I 100% agree with what Geneva's saying in regards to, this misconception that, as we're going to arm people to protect themselves against bad people, legitimate bad people, and or corrupt portions of the state, right? Because agents of the state at certain times, obviously they're humans and they're not perfect. Somehow that means like we cool with the killer, like Tupac said, like we just want guns and we want danger and that's the worst thing. And that misconception isn't actually a misconception. It's designed that way. It's designed to make sure that our communities look like, they just want to be unsafe. Because let's be perfectly honest, gun control is racist, flat out, all of it. You can't run something like that has a history in the slave codes and then run contrary to, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And then where there's the most Black people, put the most infringements. So that's kind of like tricking people into convincing them out of their own rights in that regard. That's by design. That's not an accident, but it is incorrect tremendously. And I think the last thing too is just making sure that we're not having this conversation from a place of fear. We're not having this conversation, oh, you're going to go buy all of these guns because you're scared of Biden, you're scared of Trump. That's not the thing. Americans, black Americans, have had a solid history with firearms ownership. We have fought in every single war for this nation, and we got a rich tradition of firearms heritage. So that kind of runs in tandem. You know, we can break that falsehood that we're not safe and haven't had firearms by knowing the historical context.
But a lot of people say that are anti-gun positions say that the firearm access has become too convenient. Can you kind of reconcile the I don't know, what do I call the kind of hijacking of this notion of what's convenient and what's not, and share a bit of your personal experience if you can?
Yeah, I can tell you that if anyone on the anti-gun side went to buy a gun for the first time last year in the state of California, their mind was blown, because we had people from celebrity clients to people who were totally anti-gun asking to pay more money to bypass the process. Because here in the state of California, you know, you may see articles that says it's easy as going to get a gun out of a vending machine, and that's not the case. You have to have money, for one, because there's a lot of fees associated with that. Two, you have to take a test and pass it. You have to have a license, so to speak, and then you have to wait 10 days. And California will prevent you from buying a firearm even if you have a delinquent speeding ticket. So when someone says that it is so easy to get a firearm, I would actually challenge them to walk through what that process really looks like, because their mind would be blown. And so they're speaking from a place of ignorance and something that they maybe have read, or like a headline that was maybe fear mongering, because that is not the truth.
Listen, we appreciate that, y'all. Geneva Maj, wow, dropping important gems that can hopefully avail some people to their own self-protection in this much needed climate. Thank y'all for the conversation and the information.
Welcome back to Revolt Black News. It's Tanya Christian here, leading a conversation on the gun debate. Now, earlier, Eboni moderated a conversation from the pro-gun perspective. So we're now bringing in the anti-gun side of things. And joining me are the co-hosts of Democracy-ish, Danielle Moodie and Touré. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I wouldn't say I'm anti-gun. I'm pro-gun safety.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
I'm anti-gun, so there's that.
Okay, you're anti-gun.
The other side immediately thinks that we want to confiscate all of their guns. And to start the conversation there, puts us in the gun safety camp on total defensive. I don't think that citizens should not have guns at all, or at least I'm not willing to say that in public. But I think that, you know, the easy access to guns, the prevalence of AR-15s and machine guns, these things are not making anybody safer, right? And the ease with which people can acquire guns, go to the store, pop down your money and get a gun right away when you can't do many other things in society right away. That doesn't make any sense for society. So, like, I want to see more gun safety rather than, like, just say, you know, no guns whatsoever, even though that would probably be better. Switzerland, Japan, New Zealand would say yes.
New Zealand, yeah, Australia. The reality is that if guns, right, were to make us safe, then America would be one of the safest places on the planet, and it is not. It's quite the opposite, right? We're walking around here with AR-15s and magazine clips that can take out 100 people within less than 60 seconds, and we think that that's normal. So the idea that in order to be gun proponents, we need to have these wartime, you know, weapons around in suburban America, urban America, is preposterous to me. And so I am against guns, because I feel like if we had taken action 22 years ago when Columbine happened, right, and the world was stunned, just imagine how many tens of thousands of lives, if not hundreds of thousands of lives, would have been saved over the last 22 years if we did then what New Zealand did after the mosque shooting a couple of years ago.
Danielle, you mentioned Columbine, that being 22 years ago. I am curious from both of you guys, was there a specific event that made you take this stance?
I mean, for me, it's been all of them. But honestly, it was Newtown and Parkland, right? When America decided that it was okay that first and second graders could be murdered in their classrooms, and we do nothing but offer thoughts and prayers, I knew then that we had lost the gun debate. And now they need to be some kind of security guard and cop. And we're saying, oh, well, what will make kids safer is allowing teachers to carry guns in schools or providing them with bulletproof backpacks. That's our response to children being mowed down in their classrooms. To me, is absolutely ridiculous.
There are a number of people who are not necessarily going to be at an NRA conference, but at the same time, they feel as though guns are needed in their home, in their community, simply because police don't necessarily always do their job. Taking that anti-gun approach, what do you feel should replace guns as a use of protection?
We've all seen, if we live in the neighborhoods, we've all seen that the police quite often arrive and make the situation more violent, right? And amplify the tension and the drama in a situation, introducing guns into a situation. One of the things that the criminologists see is that guns tend to be contagious, that when one gang in an area becomes armed, the other gangs in the area feel that they need to become armed to keep up, right? And the amount of guns needs to rise, like an arms race, like we saw with America and Russia. If more people were able to get jobs rather than being oppressed by the war on drugs, which puts them into the system, which keeps them out of the above ground economy, which makes them say like, oh, well, I have to go into the underground economy to support myself and my family, so that, which ultimately means I need to acquire guns to participate. Most of the gun use that we're talking about is done by young men who are between 16 and 24. After that, most people are not going to be problematic gun users. We're just asking for trouble. I mean, like, do we really need to be able to we really want people to carry guns in bars? Like, does that make any sense?
Or at a Starbucks where we saw pictures of white men carrying bazookas as if, what, was your Frappuccino too much for you today? What happened to Philando Castile when he warned, right, said to the officer, I have this gun, he was shot to death, and the NRA did nothing. Or John Crawford, who was killed in the middle of a Walmart that sells guns for holding a gun in a store that sells guns. Do I feel safer? Because I sure as hell don't. There is not a place that we can name where there is not on record someone that was killed in said place. Not a church, not a mosque, not a synagogue, nowhere. Everyone knows this. It's one of the biggest memes. If every Black person who was of age decided tomorrow to go and buy any kind of gun or build their arsenal or do a number of things, we would have gun reform in America. It would be instant, because look at what is happening right now for a fraudulent, right, man who said there was a big lie with regard to our voting and there were all of this fraud. Now we have over 253 pieces of legislation across this country for a problem that doesn't exist, right? But we can't get one piece of legislation for one that actually has a body count attached to it, right? And so we have to have these conversations in the context of knowing who we're talking about and what their motivation is. And we know that the motivation is consistently to keep Black people down, to arm white people as much as possible, because at the end of the day, they only see us as animals that need to be taken down.
As we move forward toward Black and brown and Asian people outnumbering white people in America, which will happen in the next 20 or so years, I think you're going to see a great panic and fear in a lot of white people, to where they want to be violent in striking back against this feeling of losing the country. But us picking up guns is not the answer.
Hey y'all, now for full episodes of Revolt Black News, tune into Revolt TV. And if your cable provider doesn't carry it, make sure you reach out and let them know that you're trying to join the revolution. I'll see y'all every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on Revolt.